Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Quads Get Gold. As you know, we do these programs to raise awareness of the Gold Institute for International and bring you uh, the best that we can offer 1 hour at a time so that we get a better understanding of the world around us. Tonight, I have for the second time here, but the first time as a senior fellow in the Gold Institute for International Strategy, Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff. She served in the U.S. Marine Corps on active duty for 20 years, retiring as a gunnery sergeant. Throughout her career, which spanned multiple assignments in the United States and overseas, she provided logistical and training support to combat arms and wing units. In 2019, Jessie was selected by President Donald Trump to be a co-chair for the advisory board of the Veterans for Trump and a member of the advisory board of Women for Trump during his 2020 re-election campaign. Jessie previously served as senior military advisor with Concerned Veterans for America, CVA, often as an outspoken advocate for holding the Veterans Administration accountable for the backlog of claims for benefits by thousands of veterans. She frequently addressed issues related to the mismanagement of veterans' health care and worked actively with members of Congress to improve military voting laws for service members. Prior to her time with the CVA, Jessie was a spokesperson for Military Voting Rights USA, during which time she appeared before Congress's Elections Subcommittee of the Committee of House Administration to provide testimony based on first-hand experience and to voice her concerns about the challenges of ensuring the voting rights of overseas active-duty military personnel. Jessie was a highly visible proponent of the Military and Overseas Empowerment Act, MOVE, which became federal law in 2009. Her personal awards include 3 Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals, 2 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals, 2 National Defense Medals, 6 Good Conduct, and multiple awards for excellence during her time on active duty. She makes frequent television and radio station appearances and contributes to various publications both locally and nationally to provide insight and analysis on various topics regarding national security, business, veterans, politics, and the military. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management. You mean all of that, and she can actually add. Jessie currently serves as an ambassador to America First Policy Institute, is a Newsmax analyst, and, as I just stated, now a fellow of the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Let me remind you, everybody, so I don't have to interrupt later for this, that your tax-deductible contributions to the Institute are welcome and appreciated, and you can find a link right in the description of this program, in whatever platform you are watching it. And you can also support the channel by clicking on support or contribute. And without further ado, let me bring Jessie Jane Duff.
Hi
Good
there.
evening, Gani. How are you?
I'm well, but I was trying to motion to you to stop reading the whole entire bio. I think it's the most boring thing, and people can watch paint dry if they want
It
to be
is.
bored.
It
All you
is to
gotta
you. It
say,
is to me.
no,
But you know what? People
all you
need to
gotta
know
say,
this.
all you have to say on my bio, and I gotta remind people this in the future, just say I'm a United States Marine Corps retired gunnery sergeant. I served as co-chair of Veterans for Trump. Hard stop. The rest of that is just
Okay,
silly for me. I don't.
I
I've never
I'll
been
do that.
comfortable with bios because people have a way of trying to make themselves look bigger than who they really are, and we all know people like that. And I just like to keep it simple, and I just think that having
You know that I actually did cut about half the stuff in there too.
you did what?
I did cut off about half the stuff before
No,
we
because
put the
my
bio
bio is
up.
pretty short already. Yeah,
Mm.
but I was motioning to you to stop. Stop talking.
Oh well,
I was like,
what
please
can I tell
stop.
you? Okay, I'll stop talking.
No, I mean,
You are all of the above and then modest.
listen, I just, listen, I think maybe this is just something in me. I've known a lot of great Marines. I'm okay.
Yes,
I'm not great. I'm okay. I served in my 20 years. I get awkward and uncomfortable as most people on active duty who really have served honorably and served active duty like I did. We get uncomfortable with a lot of accolades because we know so many people that sacrifice so much more. And I
yes,
think that's a great trait to have, to be humble about yourself. I've known some people that served in the military, but maybe not so much on active duty, but maybe in the reserves and had done some active duty time. They're noteworthy people on television. Many names I could drop right now that you would know and
oh
I would
yes.
know. However,
I can think
their
of
resumes are so inflated
padded.
that I'm a little disgusted by it. So I never have wanted to come across as that person. That's probably where I get
Yeah,
awkward.
what do you think? What do you think of a person who was in some support function? You know, in a forward base
I,
maybe,
I,
and they always introduce themselves as combat veterans.
I don't really get into the weeds about how anybody treats their own title. The
Right?
only
No, no,
person I know,
I don't want to say names or anything,
no,
but
I just,
you know, somebody who never saw a gun being fired
well,
except
I
in the
can't comment on
range.
that. I can't comment on that. I'm
Okay.
very uncomfortable with. I'm very uncomfortable trying to say what somebody should or shouldn't introduce themselves as. I would say that if I had served in Iraq or Afghanistan in a combatant zone, despite the fact that I didn't serve in the infantry, I don't think it's unfair to say that you were a combat veteran because you were in a position of being in a hardship post. You're in a position that you could receive fire. But it's not for me to say that. What I'm just basically saying is I'm very uncomfortable with too many accolades because there's 22.5 million veterans out there, some who served 20 years. Less than 17% of those veterans out there actually serve on active duty
Yep.
365 for 20 plus years. Very few. It's a very small number. Not to degrade my reserve counterparts or anything else, but I just know that there's a lot of men, particularly men, some women, but mostly men, who sacrifice their lives. They're buried in Arlington
Yep.
Cemetery. They've had traumatic brain injury. They've lost legs and limbs and have done so much. So I guess with myself, I just I enjoy hearing people just say retired United States Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, and that just kind of to me sums up the whole thing. Like that's the whole kit and caboodle there. The second thing that I enjoy hearing as much is saying that I was the co-chair for Veterans for Trump on the presidential campaign of 2020, because for me that was just a unmeasurable honor that I could never really ever substantiate with any other thing. So outside of that, the rest is gravy because if you're a political activist, you better have something on
Okay.
your bio, your resume. You better.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And like Dick Blumenthal, you were never in Vietnam, right?
What's that?
And like Senator Blumenthal, you were never in Vietnam, right?
No, of course not. Not old enough.
Well, neither was he, but
Well,
that
he looks
didn't
like he was
stop
old
him.
enough to have served in Vietnam. He actually did serve during Vietnam, but never went over
But
to
never went to
Vietnam.
Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem is that he said he was in Vietnam, which is a
It
rather
could have,
different thing.
I don't even want to split hairs because I identify as my father as a World War II veteran. He just
Yes.
didn't serve in combat in World War II. But he served during that war. And that the mere fact that he didn't get shipped overseas doesn't take away from the fact that he had been a army
That he was
officer.
wearing the uniform and he could have been anytime.
It could have been like most people go where they're
Yeah,
planted on active duty. We just go where we're supposed to go and we do what we're supposed to do.
exactly,
So anyway,
exactly.
but
You you give up you
on to
give
bigger
up
and better
the
things.
no you give up the freedom to choose where you go the moment you sign in.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a wonderful week of news. I understand that finally it's official. We are sending, and that is opened the door for Germany to finally relent and both send a battalion of Leopards and allow Finland and Poland to do likewise.
And
In
Britain,
addition,
the United Kingdom
yes,
also.
in addition to the Brit tanks, which were already committed,
Mhm.
and some French transports that were already committed, and this is going, or rather, is beginning to me to smell like a spring offensive in the makings.
Well, yeah, whenever you're supporting with, well, first of all, the Abrams tanks will not be over there anytime soon. It
No,
was just the mere agreement that we would be sending them at some point. But the Leopards, which are the German tanks, will be going over there very quickly, and along with some of the others that are part of the NATO alliance. Um, the Abrams tank is probably one of the most complex yet most strategic and
yep,
impressive ground artillery machine, essentially. And you're right, it does give groundwork for a solid spring offensive that the Ukrainian forces should obviously need. But I do think that many are scratching their head because how long are we going to be engaged in this? I mean, we are looking at a long-term commitment. They're not going over
yes,
today. They're not even going over tomorrow. They may not be going over, I would dare to say, probably for another 6 to 10 months. Transporting these tanks is no easy feat, and you still have to
no,
train Ukrainian forces on those tanks. So you would have to be bringing people to the United States, put them through the training, and then have them go back to the Ukraine to train the trainers, teach others to work on these. But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, how long are we going to be committed in this? And what is our long range goal here? Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted out today that the only way that Ukraine can win is to ensure that they get provided I believe he said the right combat arms, having the right combat arms or
yes,
material to win. And people were pretty
in a
annoyed.
timely manner.
Yeah, yeah, I think the impression I got out of the tweet was like yesterday. But a lot of people were not conducive to that tweet. They didn't feel good about it. They called him the swamp. I saw that. I saw people that were like, what are we talking about here? You're part of this long-term war again? Are we in an endless combatant zone? How is this going
Those
to
people,
stop? We have sent.
you have to forgive me, but I do have to say something. Those people have no idea what they're talking about.
No, I do think Secretary Mike Pompeo knows a lot about what he's
Oh no,
talking
no,
about.
Mike Pompeo definitely does. I mean, those critics who accuse him
I'm
of
not
being
I'm not
part of the
disagreeing
swamp,
with them though. I'm not
hmm?
disagreeing with them though. I think that
I am.
Americans know that $50 billion has been allocated to the Ukraine. I saw a report on Twitter again. I have to regret that I didn't open it to verify if it was even a reliable source, but it was talking about corruption in the Ukraine. And I'm very cautious about what I believe because QAnon types out there had made very legitimate sounding reports that the
And
CIA
it's
was
all
making
crap.
movement, that
Yeah,
helicopters were landing in places that they weren't landing. They created a
yeah.
lot of
It's
faux
black
news,
helicopters. It's black helicopters in the Washington Mall
but they made it
to
look
start
very
a world
legitimate.
government or some crap like that.
Yeah, but they made
It's
it
the
look very
same
legitimate.
nonsense.
They made it look very legitimate and they got a lot of people roped in. But I would just
Well,
dare to say that many.
let me ask you: is this about corruption in Ukraine? Because I have news for those idiots about corruption in Russia, or for that matter, in Washington D.C. This
I
is not
dare
a
to say
question
though
of
that the Ukraine has
corruption.
been notoriously known for a lot of levels of corruption. I mean, look at Joe Biden
Oh yes,
himself getting.
yes,
It's
yes,
been
yes, yes.
that's one reason they're not.
Definitely,
That's
definitely,
one
the
reason they're not
Putin.
part of NATO. They're not part of NATO because they haven't been able to meet a lot of the criteria in order to be a NATO alliance.
No, no, no.
And
But let's hold on for a second here. Ukraine could not be a part of NATO, among other things, because since 2014, part of its territory is occupied by Russia. And as long as part of their territory is occupied by a foreign power, they cannot qualify for NATO, number one. Number two, until just a few years ago, Ukraine was governed by a Putin puppet, who was more corrupt than
we know
Hillary
this.
Clinton and tied at the hip to the Biden crime family. But that is not the current government of Ukraine. And in any case, the question here is whether we accept a world in which a satrap can invade and take possession of a country because he felt like it this morning and has the power to do so, and continue with the targeting of children and hospitals and civilians. Do we want a world like that? Do we really want to
let me
allow
answer
that to happen?
Let me answer that. First of all, the NATO, it goes deeper than just the reasons that you gave about NATO. They don't even have the capacity to pay their percentile to national security. It's beyond just the having puppets and what. It's really just not a country that's stable enough to be a member of NATO for many reasons.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of problems with Zelensky. Zelensky has suppressed a lot of their freedom of speech over there. He has suppressed some of their networks.
Of course, they're at war.
So
they're at war. Yeah.
Let me say something. I disagree that we just can't. I disagree that the American people don't deserve answers on where that $50 billion is going. We are pumping money into a situation. Yes, nobody's a fan of what Russia is doing. I think that's a fair assessment. Nobody's a fan of it. But is this really getting resolved the right way, the most expeditious way, by pumping more and more money? And when our NATO allies that are going to be at the most threat are probably providing the least amount of assistance, $50 billion, I could understand that if Russia was invading Mexico or Canada and it was a direct threat to us. I understand that Russia is an egregious, horrible country. But is this really the best way for us to have had this problem resolved? Because it seems like all we're doing is pouring gasoline on it. Are we going to do Afghanistan 2.0 again? Are we just going to pour money onto this?
I don't know.
So that we keep it to be in an eternal combatant zone. I'm sure Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics and many of these defense contractors have profits coming from this. And I'm not suggesting, because I've supported defense industry before, that they all have an agenda to keep wars going.
Of course not.
What is the end? Where's the end? I want to know.
Can I tell you what the end is?
I don't think you know.
Yeah, the withdrawal of the last Russian from Ukraine is the end of this.
No, but
peace is a wonderful thing.
They don't know how they're going to get there. They've already released people out of prisons in Russia. They've already had people that are just not even capable of ever serving in the military out there fighting. I mean, when you have a psychologically damaged leader,
what does that tell you?
Anyway, I don't know that we're disagreeing on this. Nobody is a fan of Russia, but at the same time,
let me ask you a couple of questions.
Sal, can I finish a sentence? My argument is, are we doing this the most effective way other than just pumping billions of dollars and more machinery into something when we don't have an end in sight?
How many dollars have we sent to Ukraine?
50 billion.
What?
50 billion. And
cash?
That's probably not even counting.
Cash?
$50 billion apparently has been allocated to the Ukraine.
No, $50 billion have been transferred to the Ukraine, but mostly in goods and services. And that includes the money paid to the American embassy to process aid to American citizens stranded in Ukraine. Food for refugees, tents for refugee camps.
Why are they stranded in the Ukraine?
I don't know, because they're idiots. Because they're idiots, but that's a different problem.
I don't know about all that. I mean,
I don't know why. I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. One of the functions of the American consulates and embassies abroad is to assist American citizens.
I don't understand what you're arguing.
And that comes with a cost.
I guess I have a disconnect here, because I have never heard that argument that Americans are stranded in the Ukraine when Zelensky was able to get on a plane and fly over here. We have seen Greta Van Susteren go over there to do reporting.
Listen, when you are trapped in a war zone, you're trapped in a war zone.
Sal, are you going to keep cutting me off when I'm trying to finish a thought? You got
Please, but you have to let me finish one too.
Respond. Give me the room to respond to you. I do not understand that argument because I've never heard anything about Americans being stranded in the Ukraine. Afghanistan, yes. People who were legally able to move to the United States, yes. I've heard about that with the Taliban suppressing their travel, being unable to leave. But the Ukraine has still had massive amount of Americans going in and out of that country, reporting on the war. We've had massive amounts of fluctuation with their political leaders coming to the United States. So I don't know that that's a valid argument for the $50 billion. I would just
I didn't say 50 billion. Don't give me this. I'm not Hannity.
I'm feeling like
don't give
I'm
me
going,
this.
okay, Sal, I'll be very blunt with you. I feel like I'm going nowhere in this conversation. I don't really know the direction that it's supposed to be going, but
it's not going in a specific direction.
My only comment is that I feel that Americans have a right to understand where the money is going and what is the end, not this.
Absolutely, but nobody's arguing that. Yes, Americans have the right to know where every dime is spent. No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
No, just because I tell you that something is necessary doesn't mean I tell you it has to be done in secret.
I'm not really sure where this conversation is going. I feel like I just
the question is this. Yes,
I don't think it's a question I can answer.
Ukraine is a shithole. I agree with you. Yes, Zelensky is not a clean whistle without a shadow of corruption around him or in him. Yeah. So are the Russians, so are the Democrats in Washington. That is not my problem. Yes, the American people do deserve an accounting of Congress. But all of this has nothing to do with the principles involved.
It has everything to do with the principles that are involved, Sal. American dollars being spent.
No, the principles involved here
is our principle.
Unless you want the Russian army on the Polish border provoking a war that will require the massive mobilization of American troops, we need to take care of this now.
Yeah, and we're not. That's just it. We're not.
I agree.
We're not taking care of it now.
We should be doing a lot more.
Our allies are not taking care of it now. Everybody has dragged us out. Actually,
our allies, particularly after the Tallinn Accord, are contributing a much larger part of their GDPs to this effort than we are.
Not true. The United States has contributed far more than any of its allies.
As a percentage of GDP, we don't even come close to
Okay, so that's like comparing, a country that has a smaller citizenship than the state of California compared to the United States. You can't compare.
And Denmark, well, the only way you can compare
that when you're talking 2% of a GDP with the United States, that turns into billions and billions of dollars. Anyway,
you can't compare anything to the U.S. in absolute terms.
I'm not really sure where this conversation is going because I'm not sure what we're talking about at this point. I don't think either of us agree. I don't think either of us support Russia's invasion. I think that the biggest problem is that, in my impression, that the Biden administration is just kicking the can down the road. This was something that could have been prevented because the Russians were surrounding the Ukraine long before the invasion ever happened. We saw the buildup going on long before it ever happened. The sacrifices of the Ukraine started with Crimea long before. The sacrifices of the Ukraine happened under
2014.
The sacrifices of the Ukraine happened under Bill Clinton when they gave up all their nuclear arsenal, which was their only safety net to prevent them from ever being attacked by Russia.
Yes.
And Russia agreed that they would not attack if the Ukrainian government gave up their nuclear weapons. So how in the hell is it that Russia can say that we have a NATO alliance that cannot be involved when they were part of the same agreement as we were with the Budapest Agreement back in 2009?
The Budapest Memorandum of 94, actually.
Oh, it was 94. Fine. Under the Clinton administration. But my point is that every agreement seems to have been broken, but yet somehow we're saying we're not going to get engaged, but we are engaged. And all we're doing is just siphoning taxpayer dollars into something that Americans cannot understand.
I think I'm beginning to understand what you're saying.
What?
I think I'm beginning to understand where our perceived disagreement is.
It's not even a disagreement.
And I say perceived because I don't think there is a disagreement
I just
at all.
don't know what we're talking about. I feel like I'm going
You are absolutely correct. The Budapest Memorandum obliges the U.S. to protect
And we're over here
the
playing
territorial integrity of Ukraine.
Everything's been thrown out the window. And then to top it all off, you got Joe Biden making us less energy independent and forcing our allies to have to use Russian fuel. So here's the Green New Deal going on in the White House, but yet they're going to take all this dirty fuel from now Venezuela. They're going to do deals with, and allow Russia.
Not much to take there, actually.
But all of this is dirty fuel, but yet they are totally the Green Party. So now we haven't cut off the funnel of money that's going into Russia, which would basically force them to withdraw. And we're shoving Abrams tanks down everybody's throats. I'm sorry. I just don't understand what the plan is. Don't understand it. Don't get it.
I disagree on a couple of things. And by the way, I do agree with you wholeheartedly that the Biden administration is screwed the pooch at every turn. And they're not the first ones. This started with Clinton, as you say, when we asked Ukraine to give up their nukes. We failed to live up to our obligations in 2014 when Obama whistled Dixie while Russia invaded Crimea. And it actually occupied parts of Donetsk and Luhansk. This did not start last year.
No, it didn't. And it's been the can has continually gotten kicked down the road, and Russia knew that nobody would stop them. Repeatedly.
Yes. And worse, because Biden went as far as to suggest, and I think that Pompeo actually quoted this, I've been saying it for a year, Biden went as far as to suggest that, a minor incursion, well, can I tell you, a few weeks and it's done, we can look the other way. That's exactly what he said after the unfortunate Munich meeting. Can you believe they actually had a meeting in Munich with Kamala Harris cast as Neville Chamberlain?
Yeah, well, I don't think she was ever cast as Neville Chamberlain. I think the whole thing has been a debacle from day one, and I don't think that we don't have a coherent White House that has been able to give a valid reason for us to be this far underwater still in the Ukrainian debacle. Everybody was sympathetic to the Ukraine initially. People were flying the Ukrainian flags, even Republicans, for goodness sake. But now everybody's kind of scratching their heads going, where is this going? Are we in endless wars again? Are we in endless combat? Are we in endless situations that the taxpayers pay a heavy price for? But
I live the likes of Code Pink. You and I should know better than this. This is not a question of endless war. This is a question that we need to do more and faster, and we need to ensure that there is no reward for rogue behavior. We allow the Russians to keep an inch of Ukraine, and we're going to have the whole world testing American resolve and the world order that America has been defending for the past 60 years.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that is so far beyond what they're even capable of doing at this point. I think too much credibility has been lost. I think the horse left the barn. And to act like we're going to be the big bad Americans, I think is kind of fruitless. And Americans don't have the stomach for it. They seriously do not. They don't have the stomach for it anymore.
They need to understand what's at stake in Ukraine.
I think Americans do understand that. That's where you and I differ. I think Americans do understand, but they're also tired of watching their sons and daughters going over to participate in combat and 20 years of nonstop combat. Even if our sons and daughters don't go into this mess, there are sons and daughters of other people that are our allies that are going into this mess. I don't think Americans are stupid at all. I think Americans are fed up. They're fed up of America being engaged in things where they're halfway in and halfway out playing the hokey pokey with it.
So what is the solution?
I don't know what the solution is, Sal, and I already said that. I already said I don't know the solution, because at this point, how far we've gone down this road, what is the solution? We've pumped billions of dollars and we've pumped billions of dollars of equipment into a country that we don't even know how it's going to be resolved. We were arguing with Poland over sending some of their aircraft, and because Germany didn't want them taking off out of Germany to get transported to the Ukraine, the very aircraft that they could fly was never delivered. I don't know if it has since then, but these are the stupid arguments they've had because they didn't want to be intervened.
You're talking about five.
Sal, let me finish my thought.
You're
You
talking
gotta
about
let
the
me
five
finish
FIG
my thought,
21s.
Sal, you got to let me finish my thought.
I want to know what you're talking about.
The aircraft, I don't know whether the aircraft ever was delivered or not, but initially it sits there in Poland because nobody wanted to
Yes.
touch it. Sal, let me finish my thought.
I just said yes. I said
Sal,
yes.
this is not going to go well if you keep interrupting a train of thought that I have, because I really am trying to say something that's beneficial. That what they're talking about is that we have not done anything accurately for over a year and a half since this started when Biden took office. The Russians smelled red meat when Biden took office. They were circling like sharks. They invaded. And ever since, it's been a downhill free fall. The U.S. couldn't even say that they would engage with providing support with aircraft because nobody wanted to be the landing strip that they would use to deliver this aircraft. But now we're going to deliver Abrams tanks. Tell me the irony of this. They say they don't want to be engaged.
I can tell you more.
Yeah, so I really would like to change the subject because to be perfectly honest with you, as I said maybe 5 or 10 minutes ago, I don't know where this conversation is going. I certainly do not know what the White House's plan is, nor do the American taxpayer. And I do not think Americans are stupid by no stretch of the imagination. Those people that are stupid are not involved in politics anyway. They probably don't even get out and vote. The people that are engaged in this, the millions of Americans that are engaged, even if they support the Ukraine, still would like to know, what is the resolve? Are we going to be going at this for another year, another 2 years? Is Zelensky going to show up at Congress dressed in his G.I. Joe uniform again to get more money? Because as of right now, we don't see results for the impact of our dollar. This should have been over a long time ago.
You don't. You don't see any results in the past year.
What results do you see?
The virtual obliteration of the fighting capacity of the Russian Federation's army.
Obliterated the Russians that have come in.
I said virtual obliteration. It's over 130,000 casualties, counting.
And they're not blinking
the
an
army,
eye.
the Wagner Group.
And they're not blinking an eye. And how many Ukrainians have died?
Oh, and how many will?
Right. So how much killing we got to do before
and Ukraine, it's up to the Russians.
No, it's not just.
It's not up to us, really.
No, it's not just up to the Russians. It's also up to our NATO allies to stop buying their fuel, to start closing them off, to start isolating them, to make sure that we have
Italy.
Everything doesn't have to be a hand and fist. Everything doesn't have to be a firearm.
It doesn't have to be. But let me give you some good news. Let me give you some good news on that front. Italy is reduced to virtual zero its purchases of gas from Russia. It is building gas lines from Algiers and from Cyprus. Well, they weren't there. It's not like you go like this and they start working.
Exactly.
In 2 years, they will have
2 years.
Not only replaced Russian oil and gas, but replace it for all of Europe.
Okay, but great. In 2 years. Meanwhile, the Ukraine is getting dollars hand over fist from the United States. Again, I'm going to say this
and from just about every NATO country.
Okay, again, for about the 20th time, I will say, I don't really understand where this conversation is going. I've simply stated that the United States has not demonstrated where and how they will have resolve, and the American taxpayer.
I agree with you on that one.
And let's go on to another.
That's
topic.
Not the conversation, but the subject is more complex than just a U.S. participation.
Wow.
Let's do it, but maybe we are.
I'm tired of talking about this. How about that?
I can tell.
No, because this
and don't worry.
Nowhere.
And don't worry. We're not going to. I wanted to get something more than what we agree on, which is the administration is screwing the pooch on this one.
It's okay. Well, I can't offer you more. That's all I got.
I know.
I gave you everything I got.
We do agree on that.
Right. There's nothing that we actually disagree. I just don't appreciate saying that Americans don't understand what's going on, because they do.
My experience, and it's entirely subjective, is that a lot of people do not understand what is at stake.
A lot of people are not involved politically either. And a lot of
and
people
and
aren't
that
even voting. So I'm sorry.
and that, by the way, is also fault of the administration and the political class that are not
No,
explaining it
no, the
properly.
United States, they're actually Democrats have perfected getting a lot of people registered to vote who probably shouldn't even vote. That's why the mail-in
Oh,
balloting is so successful for them. But I will just say this: I
and that's
don't
why
think
I love
I'm
you.
I'm on social media actively, and there's everyday Americans constantly who are engaged about what's going on in the Ukraine. I'm not talking about people in Congress. I'm not talking about people in
No,
DC. I'm talking about people in any part of the United States. They are very involved because I see it with the engagement I have with people throughout the country, that they are involved and they are in tune and they are disappointed. Tucker Carlson's talking about it every night. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with Tucker Carlson,
I
but
was going to say.
I absolutely appreciate his perspective instead of just drinking Ukraine Kool-Aid, because I trust very little of what's coming out of the United States government now. They convinced us that we should have been in Afghanistan for how long? They convinced us we had to do regime change in Iraq and Afghanistan. Where did that get us? They've convinced us with Vietnam that, what started off as just a CIA mission, exploratory mission, turned into a full-grown war, and thousands of young men died.
Did they start
So
with
I
the
don't
French?
trust anything that the US government is trying to pitch us anymore. I don't think
Uh,
any American should.
I agree with you. And by the way, it is our obligation to doubt it and check it and double check it, even if we may disagree
Well,
on the particulars of
I'm
each
just
one
saying
of
that
those conflicts.
we need to question the Ukraine operation, and many people are. Give us an end
Yes.
goal, give us an end result, tell us what it is the plan is. But anyway, I
How
will
about we
say
tell them what the end game is?
I don't have the end game. So as I was said, can we change the subject? Because I'm just worn out from
I
this
tried. I
pointlessness.
tried. I tried. By
Right.
way
Well,
of
then,
Vietnam, we're trying. But
I mean, there's other topics that are going on right now. I do think that Kamala Harris is looking forward to watching Joe Biden. They try to get Joe Biden to go down for this classified material situation, but I doubt that it's going to happen now because you've got other people that are leaking like a sieve that they've had classified material. I think it's going to end up being a wash. That Department of
yeah,
Justice that did unfairly went after Donald Trump because he was the only person with classified documents at all to possess them because of him being a sitting president who could declassify those documents that he had in his possession, who actually was working with the National Archives on a regular basis. Apparently,
yep.
his attorneys had massive conversations with them. To conduct an FBI raid is reprehensible. This new Congress is not going to try to impeach Joe Biden, and for a lot of reasons that it would not necessarily politically work out in our favor. Impeachments always leave a bad taste in Americans' mouth. Let them be
Yeah.
impeached by the voter. At this point, people would love to see Joe Biden get taken out, and then you got Kamala Harris in office. So did you really? You still got the same puppets in place. The voters have to force Democrats to their knees. They have to force them out. They have to do, and that is the best action possible. But often, impeachment puts a sour taste in everyone's mouth because you end up looking like a bunch of bullies on the playground.
In,
And the
in,
Democrats did not carry themselves well at all.
Impeachment actually favors them at this point.
Well, I don't know that that's even what they want. I do know that the left is focusing in on this because I do think that they're trying to force him from being able to run in 2024. But all of the dishonest tactics of the Biden family that they have had with their foreign entities and who they have been tied to, those are far more egregious than anything else with those classified documents. As much as I could say I'm upset over the classified documents, I can't even say I'm surprised because I think most of these people are sloppy in Washington. They're not
Yes.
in a fear of a court martial like most active duty military that works with classified and understands you don't take anything home. There have been far lesser people that have been prosecuted, defense contractors and others who have taken classified documents home.
If you're a little guy, you get screwed.
Of course. But these guys,
Ask Adam Lovinger.
but you look at even someone like Mike Pence now surfacing. I mean, did he tell on himself so he could look like he's one of the cool kids too? That he's not
I
really
don't know.
that bad. That
He
he's
didn't
not a
want to be
bad
left
guy.
out. He didn't want to be left out. I mean, everybody's having a
Yeah, I
document
just
party,
wonder.
and he's watching through the window out in the cold, and he wanted to get
He
in.
wants his name to be out there. I don't know, but was this?
It's so intranscendent, isn't it?
Yeah, was he self-generating it, or did it get generated by somebody else? In the end of the day, are they all trying to do an even Steven? Is somebody saying, well, Pence did it too?
I
so
don't
we
know.
can't go
What
after
if I
Biden,
told
right?
you? What if I told you that some people are normalizing this? That
Oh, we
suddenly,
already know that. It's been normalized.
that suddenly it doesn't freaking matter
It,
if Swalwell or say Chicken Chef play fast and loose
but it
with
does matter.
classified
They just
information
got
because
removed from.
hey, everybody does it. When everybody does it, it's no longer a problem, is it?
Well, it does matter because they just got removed from committees, and most people
I
who know
know.
the truth are very clear that they understand what's
I've been
happening at the time is
celebrating that all day, but
one
but
is
but but I'm going at a different point. Uh, there seems to be an effort to normalize having classified material in unauthorized locations.
only
The
the
one thing that
left is
nobody's
doing
talking
that.
about, some of the Biden papers are from his years in the Senate.
Yeah, only the left is
How
doing that
did he
because
get
it's
him
their
out? How did he get him out of the classified room?
only the well, that's not hard. I mean, there's not a
Well,
classified room when the president
that
is
is,
also,
that's got to be intent. In the Senate, you have
it's
to go
not
and take
necessarily
a look at certain documents, and you have to look at them in the room. You cannot
not
copy them. You cannot.
necessarily. That's not true. I've had
eh,
clearances. No. Yeah, if you have a TSSCI, then if it's material that cannot leave the skiff, then it's material that cannot leave the skiff. But there can
That's what
be
I'm talking about.
material
There's
that
material
is.
that cannot leave the skiff.
Let me finish.
Yes,
It depends upon if it's material that can leave the skiff. I've worked in classified arenas before,
I
and we
know.
had Sal. I carried the binder throughout the entire headquarters when I was at 3rd Force Service Support Group stationed in Okinawa, Japan. It was loaded with classified material, and I went from room to room to carry it. Nobody was in a skiff looking at the binder. I brought it to the
No.
general's office. He looked through the binder to see what the normal classified material information was coming over, everything from TS and below. I pick up the binder, then I walk to the next chief of staff, and then I went to the next chief of staff. They're not
Yes.
necessarily in a
You
skiff
you
when they
did
do
you did say
classified
from
material.
TS and below.
And it's not all skiff material that you are referring to. You don't know whether it's secret, you don't know whether it's TS, you don't even know if it's confidential. You don't know that. Neither of us do. We haven't seen that. Okay, so a lot of classified material can leave a skiff, but it has to be ensured that there has to be a sign sheet for it. There has to be people, there has to be a chain of custody for it. There is a lot that goes into it. It's not that hard, though, for somebody to walk out with it who is just either blatantly or flagrantly trying to take information home, which leads to the question of, was this the intent of Joe Biden to take that information home so that he could do his side deals with these foreign countries? That's
I
what
don't
the
know.
question is.
Can
But that's
you
the question. We're
inadvertently
never going to
take
know.
the documents out of the skiff?
Again, not everything's in a skiff. It's not in a skiff. I worked at the classified material
I
control.
know not everybody. No, I know not every
This was my job.
classification is in the skiff.
This was my job. I worked in the Classified
know.
Material Control Center of the 3rd Force Service Support Group in Okinawa, Japan. I received all of the classified material from the center that got it electronically overnight. I would pick it up, take it in a sealed briefcase that I did not have to open for the security guards because it contained classified material. And then I went into the skiff where I worked. We filed it appropriately. And then I took those binders of the information to the general's office and all of the chief of staffs. Every single person was allowed to look at what was going on throughout the world. Whatever was in there on the need to know basis, because we were a ground operating force, a support group for the infantry and the wing units. So to say that it has to be in the skiff is not true. That is not true. It depends upon what the level of the material is, and it depends upon the classified nature of it. That's all dependent.
And it depends on who's doing the viewing.
Right. So, but it's not hard.
Which was my point.
If a president of the United States or a vice president of the United States is putting something in his briefcase, I doubt that many people are going to challenge them.
No, I was talking about a senator, not a vice president.
Still a senator. Not many people are going to challenge them. It's not that hard. That's why the purpose of the security clearance is to check the integrity of a person for their contacts with foreign nationals. That's why Swalwell is no longer going to have any access to our national security information because of his relationship with a foreign spy. That's why Adam Schiff will not have any access, because he was flagrantly going on national television spreading falsehoods about Donald Trump and Russia collusion when he knew darn well there was no Russia collusion because he saw the intel. I mean, it's not hard
Yes.
for people to be egregious who are determined to be such. It's
No,
just
but
like shoplifting. If
I
you
would
lie
say
about it,
I would say that I agree with you as long as the Democrats don't control the House again.
exactly.
Because all of this was true 2 years ago as well.
But I don't know that you're going to get a Department of Justice to go after Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, or
No,
anybody else for that matter. And as long as we don't have a Senate that is
not in
run by
this lifetime.
Republicans, yeah. Well, I don't know about this lifetime. I just know while Joe Biden is in office, they're going to have to let that horse just fade away. Just let him leave and fade out. And in 2024, expect a new candidate on the roster, and it'll probably be someone like Gavin Newsom, or it might be Pete Buttigieg, who's widely popular with Democrats, not Republicans, but with Democrats, and just see if they go toe to toe against the best we have. We have a strong bench. I don't forecast that. DeSantis and Trump will go toe to toe. It would sever our party and it would split it. It would really cause a lot of animosity. And then in the general election, the Democrats can sweep up because people will hold those grudges who are diehard DeSantis or diehard Trump. And I don't think that DeSantis is going to take that measure. He'll wait till another round when he can walk in and do this. I think people like Kristi Noem, DeSantis, I could go on and on with everybody else, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, all of these folks have done presidential exploratory committees, but a lot of people don't understand what that really is doing is building their fundraising. They put that out there, people get excited, and it builds their fundraising and helps them have their campaign war chest and gives them name recognition. So, I don't know that Dr. Ben Carson ever thought that he would truly win, but it put him out there with name recognition by running for president, as a lot of them,
And in many cases, that is the only purpose of it. There are a number of people who have run in primaries.
And it's noble. It's noble. I admire people that are willing to put their neck out there.
There are both noble and ignoble purposes. For the most part, I agree with you. They're noble. I mean, you get the name recognition, you get your ideas, you influence the party platform, you put some things to roll in front of others.
They put skin in the game, and a lot of Americans.
It puts skin in the game, yes.
A lot of Americans who complain about the process do little to help that process. The mere fact that you and I can go on a podcast and have an intense discussion demonstrates that we are willing to at least engage, where many people will just complain at home. Many people won't even get involved and pick up the phone and do campaign. I won't give a dime to the RNC. Okay, so you're not doing anything. Can you tell me what you will do? Can you tell me what you will do? Because you're surely making it clear what you won't do. And I'm not going to sit here and say the RNC is perfect, but what will you do? Will you get out there and stump for a candidate? Will you donate time? Will you be a poll watcher? Because I work with election integrity groups, and you can look up people like Cleta Mitchell, who had to go testify to the J6 committee. I've worked with her, and she's nationwide reforming election integrity state by state.
Yeah.
But yet I
one
hear
district
people,
at a time.
What is the RNC doing? They do little or nothing to get engaged, and they don't try to meet the right people to be engaged. So they're weekend warriors, or they sit there on their laptops and they chew people out on social media, but they don't do anything to actually help the people that got to hit the pavement. Winning elections is not easy. And it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of will, and it takes a lot of fortitude to roll with those punches. Those who get into this, noble may have been probably the wrong word to use. In some cases, people like Donald Trump, who have sacrificed more by becoming president than most people will ever in a lifetime, I have to recognize he truly believes in what he is doing. Yeah, there may be some self-love in it. He may think he's grandiose. He may think,
why not?
You know what? He's proven it. He's actually proven that he is all the things that he has desired
why not?
to do.
Why not? It's human.
I don't know about so much as being human as much as I think it's still courageous to say, yeah, I'm better than the rest of them. What are you going to do about it? I find that courageous, because most people who complain a lot do not have the courage to get out there on a debate stage and go back and forth and battle the issues with in the same political party.
You're so right on this, because one thing that people can do, all of those who's it seems like the national sport nowadays is kvetching. The New York expression comes from Yiddish, sitting down and complaining, kvetching
Yeah.
all the time. And those people could move their asses, go to the Republican committee in their district, in their town, in their county. And if you do, you're going to find out that within 3 days you're going to be in the BOM, and you're going to have committees of your own, because there isn't enough people
There aren't
doing this. And
volunteers. Yeah, the bulk of your RNC and your local parties are all volunteers.
Right.
I know. I
And,
work
and when
with
you speak of the RNC, you speak of the collection of people busting their asses while
many of them.
everybody else complains and helps with nothing. And
Yeah.
sometimes money helps, and sometimes they just need somebody on the phone
We
or
needed-
folding envelopes.
I'm on the executive committee for the DC GOP, and every time we have a local election, they have volunteer nights throughout the week where they're either making
Yes.
phone calls or sending emails or whatever it is that they're doing. And we can't even pull teeth to get a lot of people to show up. And
Yep.
there are there is a phenomenal high number of Republicans actually registered in DC. And we found that out when Donald Trump ran, because we had to run a caucus, and the caucus required us to have not same day, a Tuesday voting, in different wards. It was one site for the caucus, and the lines went around the block. And me and the chairman were looking at this audience of people, and we said, where have these people been? They have never volunteered. They have never shown up. If every single one of those registered Republicans had actually voted, we would have won a city council seat by then. And we were very frustrated with this.
Yes.
And we had won a school board seat twice now, but school board versus city council, we don't have much leverage there. Anyways, I noticed the time. I do have to wrap because I got to go feed my
No, it's okay.
98-year-old mother.
It's
her dinner.
Between your mother and my mother, we are turning into little slaves.
Yeah. My mother is old enough to be my grandmother, but I'm blessed I get to care for her. But I am responsible.
We do it
for
with
what she
pleasure.
said.
My mother is old enough to be my mother, but then again, I'm older than you.
Mine's old enough to be I have sisters old enough to be my mother. My mother had me last as the last of 5 children. So I always tease her and I say, well, I'm so glad you had one more because you knew you needed me now.
She had me first.
Oh,
and you know what that means.
You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, and I'm also the closest one. Because by the time my mother's generation is gone, I'm going to be first in line to check out.
Well, the closest to check out, yeah. Well, because I'm the youngest, I'm the only one that's physically able to move and relocate and assist her. So, yeah, I'm in her home right now, not my own. I wish I did. Over our fireplace, I will tilt the camera. You will see the cranes flying.
Yes.
Chinese art, and that stands for longevity. And it's not surprising that my father passed away at 97 this past summer, and my mother is 98. So I thought those cranes mean something in this house. That's for sure.
They do mean something. My father, who I was caring for the last time we spoke, passed away in August, at the end of August.
And my dad was June.
And now I'm taking care of my mother.
That's me.
Welcome to the club. It's our turn.
Yeah. I feel sorry for whoever gets stuck.
And you still find time to work with the Republican committee. And I still with the Republican committee in my county. I cannot do more because taking care of my mother in Florida, I'm not in Virginia often enough for meetings. But I actually participate in the meetings remotely.
Yeah, most of the
which
things
is something
I do
we
still.
can do now.
Yeah, I still do the remote connections and whatnot. There's always something you can do. I tell everybody.
If anybody watching this can take anything away from this other than the fact that we can love each other even though we may differ on some ideas, participate. Do not complain.
Yeah. Be engaged, be involved, and recognize that it's with God. And our faith, the hurdles are never as high as you think they are. You just consequently take one step at a time, and before you know it, you'll have climbed over a mountain. but don't stare at the mountain from a distance and wonder, how am I going to get over it? You just approach
No.
everything strategically, take one step at a time, and you don't lose yourself even in the face of adversity. Your father passed away this summer, so did mine. And we just stepped into our roles as we're supposed to, but we didn't give up the other things we were engaged in. And honestly, because of my faith, knowing that God has just encouraged me every step of the way, I've heard him say, do this with joy in your heart. It changed my perspective to what I had to do. It's not going to be a permanent situation, but it's a situation that I'll never regret having gotten involved. And the same with my politics. I can always say that I tried. Nobody can do everything, but everybody does a little bit, and it can fill that glass of water if everybody provides a drop of water. And then next thing you know, you're overflowing. So, but I do got to check out. I got to go make dinner.
Yep. And I was going to say, so in closing for this, anything else that you think we should be paying attention to in the next few days?
I think every week we have something to pay attention to. We'll be on this call. We'll be on this program for another hour, but there's a lot going on, and we just have to keep pushing on the border issues. We have to keep watching Jim Jordan, who's going to have testimony. We have to watch big tech. AT&T just deplatformed Newsmax. I'm a Newsmax contributor. We have AT&T. I called Comcast today and switch carriers. You have to stand by your honor. I mean, here AT&T cut the fourth largest cable news network. When meanwhile they are carrying some raggedy news networks that can't even bring in the numbers that Newsmax would bring in.
They're carrying stuff you wouldn't believe.
But we have to hold big tech accountable and I'd like to see what Congress is going to do. I don't know how much they can accomplish without having the Senate push things over the line, but we sure as heck can raise enough noise. We got to play by the way the Democrats did it. They're very theatrical. That's what they did with their J6. So we got to do the same. We got to expose what is going on so that in 2024, make no mistake, the American public is well informed. The suppression of what the big tech did during 2022 election, the Hunter Biden laptop, the corruption by Joe Biden, their ignorance to so much or pretend ignorance, the faux ignorance or the misinformation with the Russia collusion, all of that we now know was deliberate, and the FBI was involved in every step of it. We have to keep exposing it and exposing it and exposing it. And everybody can be engaged on one level or another, whether it be reposting things on social media so people can get that information, ensuring you're involved with your local politics, whether it be school board, dog catcher, I don't care what, help somebody good and of quality who has the energy and the willingness to get involved to help them do that. Keep your petty differences aside, because you're never going to be making everybody happy and everybody's not going to always love you, but focus on the mission. Focus on the mission.
Focus on the mission. That is the thing. And to what you were saying just now, isn't it interesting that one of the special agents in the FBI who were investigating Trump over the Russia bullshit
was colluding
was so far up Deripaska's ass that he could recite Tolstoy in Russian with an accent from St. Petersburg.
The whole thing is just unbelievable, and that's why deplatforming placed people like Newsmax and OAN. AT&T did it to OAN too. These are the platforms where conservatives get their news, and it was during the Russia collusion that the Democrats were trying to deplatform Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN.
Yes.
So they went with the smallest fish first, and they actually complied. Apparently, I heard Kelly Sadler today on Newsmax talk about what Washington Examiner exposed this. The CEO of AT&T is aligned with one of these left-wing media outlets that is still on the network. I don't remember the name of the network. It was really weird. I've never heard of it.
Listen, these are the guys who used to own CNN until the day before yesterday.
Well, the AT&T head is aligned with this left-wing network that doesn't even get the ratings of Newsmax, and she made a very valid point that the
worst of CNN was under AT&T ownership.
But she made a very valid point that these conservative leaderships, such as your Jim Jordans, your Kevin McCarthy's, and all of our leadership, our Congress people, they need these platforms to talk to their people. And when you're slowly knocking them all down, not everybody wants to watch Fox News. Even I don't. Knowing what's going on with Fox News, yes, they're quote unquote conservative, but they're very anti-Trump, or they've had some perception of being anti-Trump because of the Paul Ryan and the Murdoch brothers and those that are trying to get DeSantis to run. And they want DeSantis to run because they want to upset the apple cart. And I do believe we should have choices. Do not get me wrong. But
Yes.
They are definitely being
You,
undermined.
you're not calling for the cancellation of Fox. You're calling for let us live too.
Let us have
Uh,
options. Let's all have options. But
who
yeah, but
who
I
sh-
do
who
got to
should
cut.
buy who
I
should
gotta
buy the
I got a
Washington
mother who's
Post if it
hungry.
goes to sale? Who
I do
should buy
gotta-
the Washington Post if it goes up for sale?
I don't know. Sal.
Next time I'll ask you.
All right. I
Thank you
gotta
so
get
much,
going.
Connie. Always a
See you.
pleasure. Take care of your mom.
I
Say
shall.
hello
Good night.
to
Have a
you
good
to the
one.
world.
Thank
Good
you.
night.